We are right at 6 o'clock and we have 42 attendees. So thank you all for being here this afternoon. We've been trying to offer these webinars at different times of the day and evening so that we can offer them to a number of different audiences. So I appreciate the fact that you're here at around dinner time to hear about paid leave. My name is Andrea Barton-Reeves, and I am the CEO of Connecticut's Paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Authority. We just refer to the agency as the Paid Leave Authority. And I'm here today with my colleagues, Amber Forrest, who's our executive assistant, and another of my colleagues, Erin Choquette, is our general counsel, and she's attending this evening as well. So thank you. It is 6:01, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to go ahead and get started. All right. So this evening we're here to understand Connecticut paid leave, and our agenda is as follows. Well, first let me just tell you a little bit about who I am. I am Andrea Barton-Reeves. As I said, I am the president and CEO of the Paid Leave Authority. Before I came to the authority, I was the president and CEO at HARC, which supported people with intellectual disabilities and their families, a 68, almost 70-year-old agency. I've done a few things in the community, and I really have been fortunate enough to have been honored for some of my work. I have a degree in English from Rutgers. I am from New Jersey, and I have a degree from New York Law School. Today we'll talk about the Paid Leave Authority, the eligibility and the qualifying reasons for leave, private plans for those of you to whom that might be applicable. I will do a very brief demonstration of the paid leave site just so you can see where some resources are available to you, talk a bit about additional resources, and then we'll open it up for questions and answers. Let me just say that we are encouraging the use of the chat feature for questions and answers, and that I'll try to answer as many questions as I can. If they're not answered by the presentation itself or on our website, then there is another way that you can reach us, which I will talk about as we proceed. And also, because I'm in presentation mode, I can't see you. So Amber, if there is any question or concern, please let me know by just taking yourself off mute, because I can't see anyone or any hands raised or any chat.
We can do that.
Thank you. So here's a bit about the Paid Leave Authority. The statute was signed into law last July, and we started standing up the authority in March 2nd when I came on board. We have two primary purposes in terms of our mission. We help to provide financial relief to Connecticut families so that when they need to take time off for qualifying reasons, they don't have to worry about lost income. So we do that in two ways: by providing pathways for employees, sole proprietors, and self-employed to have accessible paid leave family benefits. And we also want to empower employers, administrators, and healthcare providers in being able to support their employees and those that are important to them to understand how paid leave works and to understand their role in navigating the program. Our primary responsibilities at the authority are these. We are responsible for outreach and engagement, which includes the many webinars that we have given and will continue to give. You'll see other forms of wider community outreach happen in the next several weeks as well, as we grow closer to the January 1 date of our first phase of implementation with contributions to the Paid Leave Trust Fund. We are responsible for developing the policies and procedures needed to run the program. We also established the employee, sole proprietor, and self-employed contribution rate, and we receive contributions. Those contributions are received by us and deposited into a trust fund that is managed by the Office of the Treasurer. We approve and audit private plans. If employers wish to offer their employees paid leave but don't wish to do so through the state plan, they do have the option of creating their own private plan, and I will later in the presentation lay out for you what those criteria are and how that process can work. And finally, we are responsible for administering claims for paid leave benefits, and those claims for paid leave benefits will be accepted starting late 2021, and benefits begin in January of 2022. Here are some of our key dates. Our website launched in September of this year, so we've been up close to 3 months or so. On November 23rd, We asked for registration to begin for employers. Those who are sole proprietors and self-employed may also register, but if you do so, because you may opt into the plan, you do have to remain in the plan for 3 years. Beginning in January of 2021, employers will begin deducting 0.5% from employees' paychecks and sending those deductions, those remittances to the Paid Leave Authority to fund the trust fund in 2021. In 2022, employees, sole proprietors and self-employed individuals can begin to submit applications and begin receiving benefits for the qualifying events under the statute. So what are some of those qualifying events? I've referred to them a few times, and here they are. You can qualify for paid leave starting in 2022 to create or expand your family through the birth of a child or through placement of a child with your family through adoption or foster care. You may take leave for your own serious health condition or that of a family member with a serious health condition. You can also take family and medical leave to serve as an organ or bone marrow donor. And with respect to the birth of a child, you may be able to take up to 14 weeks of leave due to incapacitation during pregnancy. There is special leave that's available for military families, and that includes qualifying exigency leave when a family member is called to duty overseas. And there's also up to 12 days of leave that's available for those who are impacted by family violence. Who's generally covered by Connecticut paid leave law? Generally, if you are an employer of one or more people, then you are considered an employer under the statute and you're covered by the paid leave law. Sole proprietors and self-employed individuals, as I mentioned earlier, they may opt in, but if they do.
Andrea, bear with us for a moment. You're frozen.
Okay.
Okay, we think we have you back.
Am I back? All right, okay. So great, thank you for that. It does say my internet connection is unstable, even though I am connected to the most powerful internet connection I have on my, yeah, I don't know why it's doing that, on my personal hotspot. So if that happens again, let me know. We'll stop for a moment. We'll take a technical break. I'll fix that and then we'll go again.
Okay.
So who's not covered by the Act are employees of the state of Connecticut. So non-union managerial employees are in fact covered by the Act and contribute to the fund and can participate in the benefits when they become available. Those that are in unions are exempted from the Act, but they may negotiate to be covered by the Act and participate. The same is true for municipalities and local or regional boards of education. They are generally exempt unless they have covered employees, public employees as defined by the statute. And that essentially means that if there are bargaining units or unionized employees within the municipalities or the local or regional boards of education, and they choose to bargain to participate in the plan, then they may do so. But what's important to know here is that if that decision is made, then everyone who works for the municipality or the local or regional board of education, whether they are in the union or not, are then also participating in the plan. This is not the case for non-public elementary or secondary schools. There is no eligibility for participation for those that work for non-public elementary or secondary schools. So the eligibility and length of leave for paid leave benefits. So let's just parse this out a little bit. If you are an employer and you're currently offering Connecticut family and medical leave benefits, those benefits will change, meaning the qualifications for benefits and the length of leave, those will change in 2022. What will also change is that people can come to the Paid Leave Authority and get paid for their time off, as opposed to the way that currently that family and medical leave works now, is that a person can be eligible for leave, but they may have to use their accrued time. And if they have time off that exceeds the amount of time they can get paid for it, they just have to take the rest of it unpaid. This has changed now. So what happens is, in order to get paid from the Paid Leave Authority, you must have earned at least $2,325 in the highest earning quarter of the past 4 of the 5 quarters. And you can earn that at one employer or many employers. You have to currently be employed or working in the state of Connecticut. You have to be employed, or you have to have been employed and working in Connecticut during the last 12 weeks from the time that you apply for benefits. As we mentioned, the self-employed and the sole proprietor may also opt into the plan. The length of leave is up to 12 weeks in a 12-month period for all of the leave reasons I noted earlier, with the exception of military caregiver leave. That can be up to 26 weeks of leave, but only 12 weeks of that leave is paid. There's 12 days per calendar year for family violence leave, and an additional 2 weeks of leave, so up to 14 weeks, might be available for incapacitation that occurs during pregnancy. So as an employer, if you are an employer, how would you decide when an employee gets leave? So there's a few ways that you can do this. But what we ask is, if you're applying for leave as an employee, or if you're self-employed or sole proprietor, this wouldn't necessarily apply to you. But every time an employee comes to you and asks for time off of work for a potentially FMLA qualifying reason, you really should ask yourself 2 questions. Are they eligible for leave with any kind of job protected status? And I'll go through that in a moment. And if so, you should also ask yourself the question, are they eligible for any income replacement while they are on leave? So a person comes to you, let's use an example, and they say it's 2022, and they have worked for another employer for 12 weeks, and they're with you for a month or so. And something happens and they have a serious health condition and they want to take time off. In that instance, they would not have job protected status because job protection doesn't start until 12 weeks after the person has worked for you. But they may be eligible for income replacement because they meet the eligibility standards under the paid leave law. And under those circumstances, they could come to the paid leave authority and get income replacement, although they would not have job protection. And we'll talk a bit more about that. But what we're emphasizing here is that both questions should be asked every single time an employee requests leave. You're adding this to the types of leave that's either job protected or income replacement that you may already be offering your employees. We do know that there are different types of job protected leave for which employees may be eligible. It could be state FMLA, it could be federal FMLA, it could be both that are running concurrently. They could have neither of those, but they may have some sort of job protected leave as a reasonable accommodation, for example, under the Americans with Disabilities Act, or they may not have any job protected leave at all. So all of these circumstances could possibly occur in your workplace. But effective 1/1/2022, this is how leave will work under Connecticut's paid leave law, or Connecticut's family medical leave law, I should also say. You're an employer that has 1 or more employees. Now we know that the threshold is 50 to 75 employees, whether it's federal or depending on whether it's federal or state. The employee would have had to have worked for the employer for at least 3 months. Under the current law, the employee would have had to work for the employer for at least a year and for at least 1,250 hours for federal law. The reason that they want to take leave would have to be covered by state family medical leave, as I'd outlined earlier, and the employee would be eligible for leave if they had not already used up all their leave within the 12-month period. Even under these circumstances, you should still be asking yourself whether the employee is eligible for other job protected leave under the Pregnancy Disability Act, the ADA, or CFIPA, which is a law that applies to small employers of 3 employees or more. There's also other types of job protected leave that you should be considering. If, again, under the federal, if you were an employer with 50 or more employees, if your employee has worked for at least 1 year and has 1,250 hours of work with you in the 12 months preceding the leave, if the leave is covered by reasons that are covered by FMLA, or if the employee has not already used their entire week of entitlement. Again, you still want to be able to ask yourself whether the employee is eligible for other job protected leave that might not be covered by federal or state FMLA, as I mentioned earlier. What's important here to know is that under the new law that will go into effect in 2022, if another type of job protected leave, namely workers' compensation, is something for which the employee is eligible, they will not be able to collect paid leave benefits from the paid leave authority and workers' compensation at the same time. But in a nutshell, here are some important things that you need to know as an employer. That the employee will come to you, as they do for every other type of leave that they would want to take, and let you know whether or not they that they need to take leave. Like every other leave that you may already be implementing, you would notify the employee whether or not they qualify for the leave and if they can use their accrued time to cover leave. In some workplaces, employees are required to exhaust all of their leave when they're taking FMLA. That is changed just a bit with the new law in 2022. You may require employees to use their leave to cover some of their time off, but they are entitled under the law to keep up to 2 weeks of their accrued time. So as the employer, if you feel that, or the employee does not have enough time so that they can take all of their leave as paid leave, you can send them to the paid leave authority to apply for paid leave benefits. So an employee may be eligible to receive benefits from the leave authority, even if they're not eligible for the job protected leave. If you are offering benefits under a paid leave authority approved private plan, then you are determining whether the employee is eligible under the benefits that are offered by that plan. Keeping in mind that the private plan has to offer the same or better benefits as the state plan. So we already talked about this a bit, about the employee and how income replacement works. So an employee can receive paid leave benefits from the authority concurrent with any employer-provided income replacement, meaning that if you have a short-term disability and that has a waiting period of some kind, as many do, the employee can still come to the paid leave authority and they can receive compensation, and they can also then, when they're eligible for short-term disability, also receive that from their employer. But they can never receive more than 100% of their employees' wages. And we at the authority will be asking so that we can coordinate benefits to make sure that there's benefits payments do not exceed 100%. I had mentioned this second point earlier about the employee being required, or that employers may not require employees to exhaust all of their time. They are entitled to keep the last 2 weeks, at least 2 weeks of their paid vacation accruals or equivalent PTO. So generally, short and long-term disability policies dictate that state-provided paid leave benefits must be used before an employee can qualify for benefits under the short or long-term disability policy. So that's why the benefits coordination and the communication that we at the authority will be having with employers will be really critical, so that we can make sure that you remain in compliance with the terms of your short and long-term disability, and that the person is compensated and receives income replacement, but they're not overcompensated for their time off. Again, employers can still use their short-term disability, and you may require, or you can choose to have employees use their accrued time to cover part of their time off. For those who may have spouses that work for the same employer, there are some changes to the law that I think are important for you to know. Under the federal FMLA, spouses are required to share their 12-week job protected leave if the reason is to bond with a newborn, or a newly placed foster child, or a newly adopted child, or to care for a parent with a serious health condition. And the same is true under the current state FMLA. When the new leave law comes into place in 2022, spouses will not be required to share their 12-week paid leave benefit for any reason. So let me just talk a bit about private plans. The statute does provide an option for employers to offer Connecticut FML and paid FML in 2022 with their own plan. But here are some of the criteria. It has to offer the same or better benefits as the public plan, which means it has to cover the employees for the same reasons as the public plan. It can't offer fewer types of coverage, and it cannot cost the employees any more than the public plan. And that contribution is limited statutorily to 0.5%. The employer, in addition, has to demonstrate the ability to administer the claims and benefits. And the statute requires that in order for the employer to have a private plan, they have to hold a vote seeking the employee's approval of the private plan option. And it has to be a majority of all of the eligible employees who work in the state. So if you have employees that work in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, we've had many of those instances that have been raised by other employers. The fact is that you are only collecting from those employees that work in Connecticut. And if you choose to offer a private plan, you're getting the majority vote for all of the employees that work in the state. And finally, the paid leave authority must approve your plan. Now, we're not trying to make the approval process onerous. If you meet the criteria for the private plan, and you can demonstrate that you can administer the claims and benefits either by getting a third-party administrator or some other means, then it will be our preference to approve the private plan. So if you offer it through an insurer, and I think at this point we have at least 9 insurers who've expressed an interest in offering a private plan in the Connecticut market, starting on November 23rd, you can come into the Paid Leave Authority website and register, and the registration will include your organization's intent to offer a private plan. When we at the authority have all of the private plan documentation ready for you, which should not be too much longer from now, you'll receive an email that says you intended to offer a private plan. Here's an opportunity for you to come back and tell us that you've done that you've held your voting, and that you're prepared to offer the private plan. You'll need to get a declarations page document from your insurer, and there's something else that they will give you called a plain language guide that you can give to your employees. And it's a template that we've created at the Paid Leave Authority that allows you to easily communicate with your employees about what the private plan will offer. Then once you've held your vote, you can come back and you're going to upload your plain language guide, a copy of your declaration, in essence, your proof of insurance, and the proof that you've held a majority vote of all of the employees, 50% plus 1 who work in Connecticut. There's a similar process if you choose to offer a self-insured plan, and some employers have indicated that they may do this. The difference here is that when you upload your proof of your self-insured plan, self-insured plans must also have a bond that runs to the benefit of the Paid Leave Authority Trust Fund. That's equivalent to the amount of contributions that you would collect from employees or that they would contribute to the Paid Leave Authority. You would also upload your plain language guide and your proof of your vote. What we have, because I've gone through a lot, the paid leave, the ctpaidleave.org website is really the best place that you can go to get a lot of information. It launched on September 4th, and on that site, you will find information about private plans, information that you can provide to your employees. There's also employer information there as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to go into that for you. Just give me one moment. Of course, it just disappeared, because it always does. Let's see. Came back. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and reshare. Okay, all right. Amber, can you let me know that you can see my screen and you can see the website?
It is up.
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. All right, so I thought I could just take a few minutes and go through the website because it might be helpful. You can see here that there's a call to action to register your business. You can certainly do that now. Formal employer registration begins on November 23rd. If you are an employee, there's no need for you to register. We just need to know about employers, sole proprietors, and self-employed who intend to opt into the program, and employers. If you're a third-party administrator, this is also an opportunity for you to register. There's a special call out here for sole proprietors and self-employed. You can certainly go here and find more information. For employees in Connecticut, you can click on this Learn More, and there's more information that is here for your employees and for employees. There's a video guide for employees. There's more information here about eligibility. There are key dates with respect to contributions, self-employed, when applications for paid leave benefits will begin to be accepted, and when benefits payments will actually begin. What's important on this page are two things, one of which are there's a summary of all the qualifying circumstances for paid leave. There's a summary of what the role of employees are, but most important is if there's ever a question about generally how much is going to come out of my paycheck or my income, there's a contribution estimator on this page. So if in fact I earn, let's say, I don't know, $1,000 and I get paid biweekly, I'd like to estimate what my contribution is going to be of my 1/2 of 1%. You can see here that my estimate is $5 biweekly. And this is an estimator tool that can be used at any time. It can be refreshed. You can put in different amounts so that you can get a sense of what that might look like. There's a fact sheet that's available here that is downloadable. It summarizes virtually everything that I spoke to today. It's printable, it's downloadable, and you can use it as a resource at any time. Go back here. If you're still looking for more information, we do have about 125 frequently asked questions that you can refer to in a number of different categories. I'll close this up so you can see those. They're all here. Eligibility is one of them that we get quite often. So there's a number of questions here. You can see many questions about eligibility that are here. And you can actually print these. You can open all of these categories and print them if you wanted to. You can open one specific category and print that for your reference if you needed to do that. Let me now go to the employer page so I can show you what's there. Okay. Again, it looks very much like the employee page. Here is an employer video. It's about 5 minutes long. The entire site is available in English and Spanish. There's more information about eligibility, about administering the program. Key dates for employers may also be found here in this timeline. The role for the employers, which includes making the deductions, submitting those contributions, and communicating with your employees about their leave requests and about the plan itself. But here's what I wanted to show you. In addition to the fact sheet that looks like the one for employees, there's an employer toolkit. There's an information card. I'll click on that so you can see what that looks like, which is a brief summary of everything that I've talked about, all the reasons for leave, employee eligibility, the benefit rates, it's all here in one place for you. So you don't have to create this for yourself. Try to get out of here. Okay, this little thing will not let me out. There we go. Okay. Why is it not? Here we go. All right, let me close this. It's just not letting me get back to my screen. Okay, there we go. Okay, of course now it's gone. All right, here we go. Thank you for your patience. Then let me go back to employers. Let's go back to the bottom where we were. All right, so there's also a poster that you can open that summarizes all of the updates of the plan as well. This QR code takes your employees directly to their contribution estimator. And for more employee resources, that's available there as well. Okay. So I'm going to jump out of here and stop sharing my screen because we're about halfway through and I'd like to save the last half of our hour for any questions anyone might have.
Andrea, this is Erin.
Hi, Erin.
Hear me? I can't do video for some reason, but I have been responding to some comments in the Q&As. Okay. I don't know if you want to go back through and talk about some of them.
Let me see if I can get to them. So I'll go to the answered. Okay.
The one that I was about to answer, it was a really great question, which is, other than registering our business and ensuring that our payroll company will be withholding the proper amount, is there anything else we should do? So I think that would be a great question for the
Oh, yeah, that's actually a really great question. Thank you for that. I think the other thing that you can do is to download some of the information that I just outlined on the employer page and share that with your employees. Some employers have been doing is they've just been downloading it and emailing it to their employees because many of us are just not in our workplaces right now in the midst of COVID, so that you can have us do the education on your behalf. We don't want to put the burden of educating employees on employers. That's why we've created as many tools as we can. So you can send them to the website, they can watch the videos, they can download the forms, and you can send those tools directly to them. And then if they still have questions, the one thing that I didn't demonstrate on the site is that there's a contact us feature on the website that you can go to, and you can enter a question and someone will get back to you, usually within 48 hours. So I think spreading the word is the most important thing that you can do during that time period. Okay, and then let's see. I see here, I'm looking at the open ones. Can an employer require the employee to use paid time off in lieu of PFMLA with the exception? You can, I'm sorry, let me finish reading the question. With the exception of the employer being required to allow the employee to maintain up to 2 weeks of accrued leave. And yes, so the statute says that you may allow or you can require the employee to use their paid time off. So let's say though that they need 5 weeks of leave and they have 3 weeks that have been accrued. As an employer, you can only compel them to use the 1 week of leave, and then the rest of the time you can apply to the paid leave authority to be paid for the remainder of their time off. Okay. So I see a question, what happens to the contributions if they are not used? Are they returned to the employee if the employee leaves the job or carried over to another? So this is, we get this question a lot. It is more like insurance. It's not quite like a healthcare savings account. So your contributions are not attributable to you as an individual. So no, they're not returned to the employee if the employee leaves the job. And that's true whether or not you have a public plan or you're going to the private plan. It is in a way carried over to another job, but not in the traditional sense of the money belonging to them and then it moving to another job. As long as the person is working or has worked for the 12 weeks prior to their applying for leave from the paid leave authority, then and they've contributed to the fund and they're eligible for leave, then they can in fact apply for leave. So in that sense, their contributions continue to pay for their paid leave benefits. So it is more like a pool than it is an individual insurance plan. So let me see if there are other questions here. Okay. So I understand the frustration around the small business and the cost. I do understand and appreciate that. We at the Paid Leave Authority are trying to do the best that we can to make sure that the burden is not as great on employers. That's why we're trying to create as many tools as possible so you're not responsible for informing your employees or creating your own materials. We've talked to a lot of employers, and that was one of their frustrations, is that when the state creates a new program, if they leave it up to the employer to figure out how they're going to communicate it, what they're going to do, they don't offer them any support. So we're trying to do the best that we can, but we do understand that it's new and it's different, especially for small employers who have not had to offer family medical leave before. So we're really just trying to do the best that we can. Okay. So yes, we are a quasi-governmental state agency. We are not a state organization in the traditional sense. And I am in fact an employee of the state of Connecticut. That is true. Okay. But if an employer uses vacation, sick, personal time, how is the required 2 weeks of accrued leave figured out between the 3 types of leave? Okay, so I'm not quite sure what the 3, are you talking about the federal leave and the current state leave? So I don't know, Melissa, maybe if you can give me some more information and another answer, another question, I could try to answer that. I'm not quite sure, but I want to provide you an answer. Okay, so here's another question. What is the maximum weekly benefit someone is eligible for? The maximum benefit you can get is 60 times the minimum wage. So that is the maximum benefit. The minimum wage now is $12 an hour. Okay. Let's see. So we only have part-time employees. Do we still deduct the contribution? Yes, you do still deduct the contribution. So the employee status of full or part-time is not a relevant factor in whether or not they have to contribute to the fund or whether or not they're actually eligible for benefits. Erin, maybe you want to answer this question about what are some examples of serious health conditions?
I'd be happy to. A serious health condition is defined under federal FMLA and the existing Connecticut FMLA, and we're going to be using those same definitions. So a serious health condition is could be something like pregnancy. It could be a broken leg. It could be having to have dialysis or radiation. There is actually a relatively technical definition that is in 6 parts, which is a little bit more detailed than we probably want to spend time on tonight. But basically, the idea is a serious health condition is something that makes it so that you need to take time away from work, either because of the condition or because you need treatment for that condition. You're under the care of a medical provider, and then it gets into details like there's a certain definition if it's for a short-term illness, a short-term serious illness versus a long-term chronic illness. But basically, it requires all of them require medical documentation to substantiate that you are unable to work because of that condition or the treatment. Certain things like the flu, even COVID, if you're not getting any prescription or in hospitalization care, wouldn't be a serious health condition. It really depends on the nature of the treatment that's being provided.
Thank you, Erin. Then I got a question in the chat that said that I said that registration opens on November 23rd, but some businesses have already registered because it's already open, and that is true. So what has happened is that some businesses have asked for more time and felt that November 1st was a very quick date for them. So if you were ready to register on November 1st, you could certainly do that. But we moved then in response to the feedback we were getting from employers, third-party administrators as well. We moved the official opening of the registration to November 23rd. So if you go in today, you can certainly do that. But you can also wait for the 23rd. Then that's in response to some of the feedback that we've gotten. And here's another one. I'll answer the one after that. Can you explain the interaction between CT, PFL, and short and long-term disability for things like a birth and own serious health condition? Can an employer ask that family medical leave be the primary and short-term disability be the secondary? Oh, did I freeze?
You are not frozen.
Okay, great. Got lost Erin there. So let me go back and ask that question. Okay. So, and most, I'll try until Erin returns. So most short-term disability policies that employers have require that the state, that the employee exhausts any state available benefits first, and then they're eligible for the short-term. So if that is in fact the case with the policy that you have, then you would then be able to ask your employee to use the paid family leave primarily and your short-term disability secondarily. Also, in some cases, some employers have a pretty significant waiting period until short-term disability benefits eligibility begins. And in that case, the person would in fact come to the paid leave authority first, and we would necessarily be primary, and then the money would, then the person could then access their short-term disability benefits when those are available. Okay, so let me just, I'm trying to keep up. What happens to an employee contribution if the employee moves out of state and subsequently leaves, needs paid leave? So it depends on what state they're going to. Many more states are adopting paid leave, but the contribution is not one that follows the employee if they move out of state. So that is a contribution that's made to the fund and is not refunded to them. The money is put into a fund that is solely for paid leave. It is not part of the general fund. It is in a separate trust fund that is managed Office of the Treasurer, and it is not part of the general fund. And the statute, in fact, prevents the sweeping of that fund for any purpose. So it is not part of the general fund. Okay. Let's see. This is a question we get a lot. For eligibility, who determines the legitimacy of someone who has the family relationship that's a close association to the employees, the equivalent of those family relationships? So I understand this is a significant concern to employers in particular, because we don't want someone who has multiple relatives, taking leave multiple times throughout the year. So we have some guidance on that will probably be published after it's actually up for public comment now in the Connecticut Law Journal. So we will be offering some guidance as to what family means. There are other states that actually have also a very expansive definition of family. And the employer can, in fact, ask some very specific questions about the relationship that that person has to the person that they're taking the time off for. But we'll have a bit more guidance for you soon. Okay.
Andrea, we have a question here in the chat that I wanted to run by you real quick.
Okay, let me see that.
And this is coming from Susan Manning.
How do we get information about submitting escrow amounts at the end of? So is the question is how, in fact, do you do that? So that will be coming, the way that you would submit the amounts will actually be coming probably in mid-December. So we're just testing that right now. And then you'll have some more information on how to do that, probably in the next, maybe right after Thanksgiving, of how to submit your employee contributions that you're withholding. So I think that answers your question. If it doesn't, then please put something else in the chat and I'll try to answer it. Okay, great. Okay. So no, if you receive a W-2, you're considered an employee, but if you are the only employee, I think that was a question that came up earlier. So a W-2 means that no, you are an employee and you would not opt out. If you're a sole proprietor, following that question, you decide not to sign up now and join later, it is absolutely possible to do that. You may join at any time if you are a sole proprietor or self-employed. Just as I've said before, I know I keep repeating myself, if you do so, you just need to know that you'll be in for 3 years. So that's just a decision that you can weigh. Okay. So how are officers of a corporation affected? Are they to be included? We do not pay workers' comp. All right, so there's no relationship here really between a workers' comp obligation and the obligation to participate. If you are an officer of your company and you receive a W-2 and you're essentially an employee, then yes, you do have to contribute to the fund. You're also eligible to apply for paid leave benefits. What happens if a business closes? So I need a little bit more information. It's because I don't want to speculate on what the answer might be. So if the business closes and you no longer have employees in the business, then you don't have an obligation to withhold their pay and send it to the paid leave authority anymore, nor do you have an obligation to administer benefits. Let's see. Okay, what type of information is required to register? You know what I'm going to do? We have a few more minutes. I'm actually going to go through the registration process. I have a few slides. It is a 4-step process. It is very simple. You do not need to go, get birth certificates and tax returns. You don't need any of that. It's very simple. So I'll walk through it. Even before you register, when you get onto the site, there's a checklist that you can download that will tell you exactly what you need before you go into the site and register. And this was my personal pet peeve. I hate to go into things and start the process, and then they tell me I needed 4 things that I wish they told me before I sat down and got it. So I just find that really annoying and frustrating, and I didn't want people to have that same experience. So there's a checklist that tells you exactly what you need to do before you even begin the registration process. And it'll probably take you about 8 to 10 minutes to do it. It's really that simple. Okay, if you deny a request for leave, is there an appeal process to the state of Connecticut? Yes, there is. So the Department of Labor is responsible for any appeals or for denials of leave that an employee might have. Okay, let's see. How would you handle being an employee of a Connecticut division? You make contributions, you get transferred by the same employer in a state that does not have FMLA, but you become sick. Can you be eligible for benefits? This is a great question. So I don't know if Erin, she may have left, but the person who posed this question, I would like for you to, it's a complicated answer and I want to get back to you. So can you email me? Amber, can you put the support at DT Paid Leave address in the chat? Because I really want to get back to this person because we just got this question the other day and it is.
Absolutely. And Erin's
yeah.
internet dropped, just so you know.
Okay, all right. Let's see. Is the cost of the program funded by the taxpayer through the general fund? No, it's not. It's the fund, the authority is all funded by the contributions to the trust fund. So can anyone apply to the authority? Can a high school student or a college student apply to the authority if they have a qualifying reason? And can their parents apply if they're still under their care? So there's no age limit for the authority. It's anyone who is working. So we do get this question a lot. I think I saw a question earlier about someone who is hiring students for 8 weeks, whether or not they have to withhold for them. The answer to that generally is yes, you do, but it depends on how you're hiring them. If they're work study, the Department of Labor will have some more specific answers for that I can get to you, and they may be in the frequently asked questions on our site. Who completes the registration, the employer or the payroll vendor? It's actually both of you. So the payroll vendor is going to enroll on your behalf. Okay, so all my questions just went away. So let me go back. It just went away. And then we ask you as the employer to register just so we know that you are there. We are trying to pull information from both the Department of Labor and the Department of Revenue Services. But we're asking all employers to just go in and register as well. And your payroll provider will enroll the provider on your behalf so we can make sure that they're withholding the payroll contributions as they should be and remitting them. Okay, so the email address is support@ctpaidleave.org. Okay, let's see. Someone asked, is the money collected put into I think I answered that already. For paid leave, or does it go into the general fund? It does not go into the general fund at all. Okay. So yes, your business is a corporation. You're the only employee. Does that qualify as to your answer regarding sole proprietor? That is true. Yes. So we just had this question the other night. So I would say with the facts that you've provided so far, that you can opt in to the plan if you choose to, or you can choose not to opt in. But I would probably need some more information. So if you had more questions, if you wanted to email us, we can definitely get you some more information. I think we've answered all of them. Okay. So, here's one. For self-employed people, are we required to be part of this program if we don't have employees? The answer is no, you are not required to. If you hire employees, then then you can, in fact, you would then be obligated to withhold the 0.5% for them and send that to the authority. But a sole proprietor, to answer the question right above that, you opt out, you just don't register. There's not you're not required to register and then indicate that you're opting out. You just skip the whole process altogether. Okay. Let's see. Amber, did we record the presentation this evening? Because I thought we were recording all of ours. It looks like we have.
Yes, we are.
So yes, it is. So if you missed the beginning, it will be recorded for you to watch later. We're loading it up to our website. It does take a couple of days to do that. So I would tell you to continue to check back. Okay. So if you're a sole proprietor who may end up closing your business, so are you thinking about registering and contributing and then closing your business? So what I would say to you for the person who posed this question is to kind of wait and see where things settle before you start making contributions or decide to register. And then you can come in at any time. Okay. All right, so here's one. We have employees that work at multiple employers in Connecticut. Who is keeping track of the amount that they pay to the authority? So we keep track of what they're paying. If the employee reaches the maximum contribution, does the withholding stop? So the answer is yes, but here's the thing, that the maximum withholding is up to the Social Security max, and that's 140. Now it's about $146,000. So it would be quite some time for some employees to reach that maximum contribution. Others may reach it fairly quickly. In terms of the amount, let me describe it a different way. The maximum employee wage amount, or say salary amount, from which withholdings are made is $146,000, which is the Social Security amount. So there's no withholding for any amount of salary wages that's made above that. So that's a different way of reaching the maximum contribution. There is no maximum contribution, meaning that the person owes the authority $1,000 for the year, and if you've collected 1,010, then that's the maximum contribution. The max is really doesn't really necessarily work that way. It's actually your contribution level is capped at your salary level or your income level, and that's the Social Security max. Okay. So the question about fraud is one that we get quite often. So what will you do? And yes, there are penalties that will be imposed on employees who use the system fraudulently. We do have the authority to actually pursue the repayment of all of the money that someone may have received fraudulently. And of course, if we need to work with the Office of the Attorney General to prosecute someone, we certainly will do that. We hope that that will not be the case, but fraud is unfortunately a part of benefits payments. We see it with the Department of Labor, we see it with workers' compensation, we see it with insurance generally, whether it's state-run or it's private insurance. Unfortunately, people will engage in fraud. It is an unfortunate part of human nature, but we will do the very best that we can. We're actually working with a number of fraud prevention agencies right now who have worked with other states who also have paid leave, so that we can put best practices in place in the very beginning, so that we can hope to avoid people, or at least minimize the number of people who will engage in fraud. It's a concern of ours as well. It's a significant concern, particularly when you watch what's happening at departments of labor across the country. But fraudsters are manipulative and wily and very smart. So it's really a tough job to try to keep ahead of them, but we'll do the best that we can. Okay. All right.
Andrea, we have a question here that I would like to call out.
Yes.
This is coming from Bob V. We have an in-house aide who assists an elderly person in our home. Do we have to deduct 0.5% for her and participate in the program? Or is there an exemption for private healthcare aid?
No, so that's an excellent question. And actually, it came up very recently for others that offer home health care, whether they're an independent contractor. So that was one of the questions. If they're working for an agency as an independent contractor, does the 0.5% need to be withheld? So the answer is no, because they're independent contractors. So they're responsible on their own for signing up with paid leave, whether they want to or not. But if they are an employee and they assist an elderly person in their home, then you would have to deduct the 0.5% for her. There is not an exemption for private health care aid. But I do know that some private healthcare aides, particularly in the development disability field, they are hired and paid through a fiscal intermediary. So we are working with some of those fiscal intermediaries to really understand how that process would work for them, but they're not eligible. So if they're your employee and you fit the definition of employer in the state, then no, they are not exempted from participation.
And Andrea, we have another one here, if I may. This is coming from Susan Mulcahy. How about contract labor employees, 1099? Deductions need to be taken.
So no, they don't. So I think what that question is posing is whether or not someone who actually works for you as an independent contractor and you issue them a 1099, that's a record of what you've paid them for the work that they provided to you, they are not considered your employee. So you do not have to withhold the 0.5% for them. You do not. Okay. So are we sending notifications for all businesses to sign up? We are, in fact, going to be doing that. You'll see that happen more frequently, really over the next couple of weeks or so. There will be a much more public push. We really were waiting for the election to be over because we knew people weren't really paying close attention, and we didn't want to compete with that. But now that it's over, you will see much more information. It's one of the reasons why this webinar series has been launched right now, because we wanted to make sure that we had people's attention. So if someone earns the Social Security max, what is the benefit amount? Okay. So I think what this question is posing is, how much do you get in maximum benefits per week? The maximum that you can ever get is 60 times the minimum wage, even if you're owning the Social Security max. So for those who are considered to be sort of higher wage earners, you will have some form of income replacement, but it will not be full wage replacement. Full wage replacement is more likely, or 95% of wage replacement, which is what the statute calls for, is more likely to occur with people who are making closer to the minimum wage than not. So for those who earn more than the Social Security contribution max, there's still some wage replacement that's available. But as I said before, it probably won't be close to what you're bringing. But when we compare that to no wage replacement now, with most forms of family and medical leave outside of accrued pay, it's supposed to help to at least provide some sort of income. Okay. So we understand, and here's a question, we understand that we have to pay 0.5% of employees' pay incentive to the authority. Who decides on the granting of the leave itself for employers with fewer than 50 employees? So if you recall from the slide, that in 2022, that 50 employee threshold goes away, and the law will apply to employees if you have one or more employees in your workplace. So the employer will continue to grant the leave itself for those employers, even if you have 50 or fewer employees. So it is very different than what you may have been accustomed to doing before. And I know that there is a significant challenge in that, in aligning the federal FMLA, the current state FMLA, and then FMLA in the state as it will start in 2022. But that's one of the reasons that we're here at the Paid Leave Authority. It's one of the reasons that we continue to do this outreach and communication, that if you have a question, to submit that question and someone will get back to you. We want to help you work through the process. We understand that it's essentially Connecticut's family and medical leave law is changing to a shorter duration for eligibility, for job protection eligibility, and it also now has a paid component to it. Those are really the three major changes to the law. Okay, let's see, I think there's two more. Let's see, so if I'm self-employed and don't take a salary, how would I opt in and make a contribution when I also have employees that get a regular paycheck? So you can opt in if you're self-employed and you don't take a salary. You would withhold your own 0.5%, or if you have a third-party administrator that does that for you, and then you can make your own contribution. Unlike your employees, you would have the option after 3 years to decide that you don't want to participate anymore, and then you can opt out by just giving us 30 days notice. Right now, we're just taking an email that says, I don't want to do it anymore, and that's fine. So that's how you would opt in. If you also have employees who get a regular paycheck, you would either yourself, or you would have your payroll provider or your tax accountant, or whoever may be doing that for you, your payroll for you, withhold the 0.5%. And you can then submit that to the Paid Leave Authority on their behalf. The question we often get is, can I just do it together? Let's say I'm self-employed, I don't take a salary, I still want to contribute, and I have employees that want to do it too. Can I kind of put it all together? The answer is yes, you can. You can certainly do that. For the cap at 60 times the minimum wage, that's assumed for a 40-hour week, a 30-hour week, or how's the max determined, since the minimum wage is hourly? So yes, so that the formula is convoluted and not easy to understand. But what we do then is, Erin is on the line, but it is a very complicated formula. We try to simplify it by saying that the max is 60 times the minimum wage. So what happens is that we take you can get up, if you come to the Paid Leave Authority for benefits, you can get up to 95% of your weekly wages. If that doesn't bring you to enough of a level to get you to where your weekly wage would normally be, then there's another 60% on top of that. But the maximum, even if that exceeds, let me put it a different way. Once we do those calculations, If that number exceeds $660 right now, we still can't give you any more than that because that's the maximum contribution. So what we plan to do then is to do the full calculation of what 95% of your wage replacement would be. We will tell you what that number is, but you'll have to know that the statute caps it at $660. Let me see. Yeah, so the 660 is the max if someone earns the Social Security max. That is true. That's by statute.
All right, Andrea, I believe that is all of our questions for this evening.
Okay, so it covers 12. There's one more question. It covers 12 weeks up to 14 weeks if there's incapacitation during pregnancy. So that's how it covers. So that's how that works. So we're right at 7 o'clock. I promise I would not keep you for more than an hour. I have to say thank you so much for participating. I love all the questions that you asked. It really helps us to provide a lot of support. Please go to the paid leave website if you have any more questions, and submit your questions to support at ctpaidleave.org so that we can answer your questions more specifically. But thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Andrea. Have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you.